All right, so it's been a busy weekend. Unfortunately, we saw a pretty major rug pull from the LIBRA Memecoin. That's LIBRA. This was pretty far-reaching, actually. Even the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, was involved. It's kind of surreal. And look, unfortunately, now we have to ask a critical question here. Is Jupiter a positive or a negative in the crypto industry? Are they an enabler of scams? Is that fair? Or is it just the fact that this is an uncensored platform, it's open, and as a result of that, obviously the consequences that you have good actors and bad actors that can list projects, get involved, and unfortunately some scams are going to take advantage of that. Maybe you have a certain answer to that question, maybe I have a certain answer to that question, and maybe they differ, but collectively speaking, people are going to start considering this, and that will determine whether Jupiter and of course its JUP token are still respected as being part of the Solana ecosystem, because this potentially could lead to some trouble, of course. There are a lot of positives here when it comes to this project, though. It's had a rough couple of days, admittedly, but it's not all doom and gloom. One example of a positive is their buyback program that actually launches today. And so, like anything in reality, for the most part, this is a nuanced topic. It deserves a closer look. That's exactly what we're going to do today. And we're going to see if it's worth, as a project, the positive or the negative hype that they're getting. Welcome to the channel. My name is Maddie, and this is Altcoin Buzz. Jupiter or Solana ecosystem or otherwise, if you're in the crypto space and you choose to invest, I wish you very, very well. Just remember that I'm not a financial or investment advisor, which means by extension that this video is not official financial or investment advice. So let's start with some of the positives on this Monday. I'll begin with the optimistic case for Jupiter, which is a DEX aggregator on Solana. If you're totally unfamiliar with what I just said, an aggregator just finds the best exchange rate for you in the space. So it's kind of like the decentralized exchange Jupiter is of decentralized exchanges, because it uses an innovative routing algorithm that is used to reduce their slippage. And the result of that is that you get basically a better price on your trade, ultimately. And actually, the fact of the matter is that even if you're not an active user, you may have used Jupiter without necessarily realizing it. Because if you have a phantom wallet and you've used it to swap Solana assets, that was Jupiter. It's now one of the largest DEXs on Solana. For example, it actually outperforms Radium in both 24-hour volume and by market cap. And furthermore, it's the top DEX aggregator across all chains. Jupiter has also been historically very good to its community. There's a yearly token airdrop that happens every year in January or Jupuary, and you can also vote on their DAO proposals. The team involves their community in pretty much all the major decisions out there, with what I would consider a pretty good example of real and active governance. I just want to mention briefly that if you're looking to buy some JUP tokens, then you can take advantage of our terrific deal here, courtesy of our friends over at BYDFi. More information in the description below. Jupiter has also started a pretty significant buyback program. This actually starts today, and Jupiter is making money on the swap fees. Jupiter also makes money on fees in its pools and on the perps that it offers. For the buyback program, it's going to be using 50% of these fees. So it'll lock the JUP it buys back for 3 years, which actually translates into no sell pressure. That's nice. This is in contrast to airdrop events, like I mentioned, those that happened every January. And for good measure, all JUP rewards from the ASR program are automatically staked, and the unstaking period is 30 days. Jupiter also had its recent Congress, which took place in Istanbul, and it was dubbed Catstambul. Out of the 10 billion max supply of JUP, the team has burned 3 billion JUP. However, even after that measure was taken, there wasn't much improvement to the price at all. It was still just absorbing all that January sell pressure. Another factor to consider is also the fact that only 2.6 billion tokens are in circulation, meaning that there are token unlocks coming up. But to be fair, the recent burn and the buybacks should help mitigate these other factors. Now, we are still considering the optimistic scenario here. And with this mindset, the buybacks can lock up 9% of the supply. As already mentioned, this is going to reduce sell pressure, or will at least contribute to a reduction in sell pressure. Also, with a reduced circulating supply, it's arguably pretty likely that the JUP price is going to increase. The shift from burning to locking the tokens for 3 years is also pretty important, because this demonstrates a long-term commitment to supply, management, very importantly. Short-term price action plans, like burn mechanisms, honestly may not last. It lines up its incentives and combines them with sustained platform growth. And at the same time, it has enough liquidity for active trading. So taken all together, I think it's fair to say that these factors together would contribute to elevating the price of JUP from where it currently sits, 84.5 cents or so, to something closer to $3, maybe $4. We're talking about a 3.5, a 4, about a 5x. It's not so unrealistic. We can look to BNB's buyback and burn program as an example, which obviously helps to support the price of that project. Okay, so I wanted to start with some positivity right out of the gun at the outset, but we now have to discuss the case against Jupiter. First of all, most SOL tokens can get liquidity to trade using it, and it does have some good relationships with, like I said, an active community, one of the best. But then this weekend, we saw the LIBRA debacle that unfolded, LIBRA. A meme coin launched, essentially, that included, as you saw, Argentina's president shilling the coin, and one of the fastest rises, falls, and ensuing rug pulls in history. And if we look at X and we consider the sentiment, it kind of feels like something has changed. Check out this clip here.
So, but if you launch the coin, isn't it unfair for you to snipe the coin?
So I would say no. And I would say that for a couple different reasons. Number one, a lot of the times when, and again, this is like, it's a much larger conversation, which is what I told you in text. But most of the time when I have different money in different places, obviously. But from the standpoint of sniping, most of the time when we're sniping, we're attempting to avoid other snipers getting in.
Shipping tokens and insider activity that are often illegal in conventional markets seems to be like it's just part of crypto. Unfortunately, I would say, we've grown to accept it. But that being said, something is still different about this because there is a backlash, right? The backlash is hitting Solana, Meteora, and Jupiter, all of whom were part of this Libra fiasco. And it certainly is a fair question to ask to what extent they were involved. Is it something intentional, or is it just more a question of having the technology that enables, unfortunately, dishonest and unfair launches? At the end of the day, someone knew something. Whether it's Hayden Davis talking about sniping in this clip, or Kelsier Ventures, or maybe others that were involved in the launch of the Melania coin, somebody knew something. And so correspondingly, the backlash has been severe because despite crypto being about personal responsibility and custodianship, right? Buying what you buy and being in charge of it, selling, holding, trading, whatever you want to do, there are many that now believe that this is one step too far. A lot of people now think that at least some protections for users are necessary in the Solana meme coin casino. Here are just a few of the comments, a small sample that concerned Jupiter after they tweeted that they did not find any insider advanced knowledge on their end. Of course, you can check out the reactions for yourself. They are all over X. The point is that no one believes they didn't do anything. So it's just a question of to what extent were they involved, right? The answer is somewhere on some spectrum. It's a question of degree. And you can see from the other comments in cyberspace that this is damaging, obviously, to the reputations of all three projects, but probably most of all to Solana. So there are some very big and also some seriously legitimate questions here to be asked. Is Jupiter knowingly an enabler of scams, or is it just more part of real decentralized finance and a consequence of this kind of new world that we're in? Those same questions exist for Solana too, for that matter. And there's some nuance here too, right? Because if you think about it as a bit of a thought experiment, we don't blame Gmail or email providers if we fall victim to a phishing email scam, right? Or blame cars or highways for drunk driving accidents, for that matter. There's lots of examples here, lots of analogies I can cite, but I think you get the idea. The arguments for it being part of real, true, decentralized finance are valid, but also Gmail, car makers, and local jurisdictions, they do have protections in place to help people use their products and services effectively and safely while looking out for the well-being of the broader populace, right? Well, Jupiter, Meteora, and Solana don't have those. They have none of those safeguards. Two simple things they could do to protect users on their platform right away would be Number one, increase listing fees. Because when people can list any token, whether or not that's a scam, for so little, you have a very small barrier to entry, and you get token farms creating 50 different tokens a day on pump.fun. There's just no obstacle to overcome. And at least in my opinion, this is my firm point of view, that does not help our industry. And so by taking this kind of initiative, you're going to cut back pretty dramatically on scam tokens if you just make the cost of doing business a little bit higher. Jupiter should consider this, and I don't really think there's any argument against raising its listing fees to some reasonable amount. A second major initiative that they could take would be delaying pump.fun listings, because most of the almost 500,000 new meme coins per week are just going to die out in the first 12 hours. So if Jupiter waited, let's say, for example, 48, maybe 72 hours before listing tokens and providing liquidity, this would certainly cut down on a lot of the scam activity as well. It would not have helped, I'll admit, in the case of Libra, but it could help others. All of this without having the silly permissions like KYC that you'd see in traditional finance, because in all likelihood, KYC would not have worked here either. The bottom line is that no one wants KYC or excessive rules, middlemen, rent seekers, whatever, the kinds of things that we've grown tired of that have existed for a long time in conventional finance, right? That's why we have crypto. That's why we have DeFi. Really, in the first place, they've emerged as a response to a lot of those things, which are a drag. We've always wanted to fight against these things, right? But something has just changed with Libra. That's the reality, whether you like it or not. And the reality is also that a couple of improvements, a couple of mechanics, like those two initiatives that I mentioned above, as my suggestions, they could come online, and the result would be that they would greatly help to improve the reputations of Solana, of Meteora, of Jupiter, and some others as well. So is this whole fiasco going to go down as a net positive or a net negative? Because I've presented both here, the optimistic and the pessimistic views. The positives include wide access, respect for its community, of course, and that new buyback program, which we like. These are three factors alone that do put Jupiter ahead of many projects, to be fair. But the negatives just can't be denied, especially with this most recent spectacular Libra rug pull. I am a big fan of the innovation in this space and the evolution, the maturity that we've seen. But I'm going to have to say that on the whole, we've experienced a net negative here. And, in certain ways, not that they're all the same, but we've seen a lot of this kind of stuff over the years. And it just seems to be that there's an evolution of it. People are getting wiser and sharper and more clever with the scams that they pull. This is still the Wild West, right? And there's always going to be charlatans in this space taking advantage. But that's my point of view. There are not really any easy or at least immediate solutions right here. Let me know if you think DeFi can or ought to be or should be 100% permissionless and censorship resistant so that anything goes. Of course, that's going to let the scams through as well. Or do you think that we can have that and still have some common sense rules to help lessen the spread of these scams, or at least act as a deterrence? It's not an easy discussion, or at least not one that offers some easy solutions, but that's our industry, right? We're growing, we're expanding, we're figuring things out. There's a lot to be said on this one. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also join us on Discord and X. You can always find those links in the description of the video below.